All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rattling the Brain. We are on season three, episode one. We had two great seasons, took a little bit of a break, but we are back now. We have an amazing guest coming on to start off this season. We have Eric Smith. He's been working at Sportsnet and Sportsnet 590 The Fan. He's covered the Raptors. He's done work for Global TV, CNN, NBA TV, CBC, plenty more. He's done it for over 20 years. He has been a radio voice for the Toronto Raptors and done broadcasts for them as well. So plenty of insight from him today and looking forward to hearing his story. Eric, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So just kind of getting to know you as a kid, were you someone who played sports, watched sports growing up? What were sports to you?
All of the above. Baseball was probably my number one sport in terms of as an athlete, but I kind of played everything. Like I was, I'm obviously quite a bit older. Not that we didn't have video games back in my day, but it's obviously not to the extent that it is now. So I was certainly playing video games when I was a kid, but more often than not, I would say probably the vast majority of the time, I was outside in the driveway shooting hoops. I was at the park throwing a ball or playing Burby wall ball, or on a diamond playing baseball. I was playing ball hockey. I was playing road hockey. I was playing tennis. I was, flag football, touch football, you name it. Maybe tackle in the wintertime when there's a little snow for some cushion or whatever. So I was always out. And to this day, even, I often say this to my wife when I'm talking about working out and whatnot. I'm not a workout guy. Like I'm not a guy that likes to go to the gym and just like stare in the mirror and lift weights. But if you ask me to go play a sport like right now, I would love to go get up some shots for whether it's 30 minutes or 3 hours. I would love to go run around and play a football game or just be active. So I think that started at a young age. And certainly watching sports and just being a sports fan in general was absolutely a major part of my upbringing, whether it was watching the Blue Jays as a kid, whether it was watching Hockey Night in Canada and watching whether it be the Sabres or the Leafs kind of growing up in the GTA in the Greater Toronto area. And we watched basketball, but of course with the Raptors not coming in until 95, 96, you really had to find basketball on the US networks if you were a fan. So when I was fairly young, I got hooked on the Showtime Lakers, and that's the team that I grew up on, Magic Johnson and the Lakers. And then, of course, MJ comes in, and how could you not be a Michael Jordan fan as well? So there was just a lot going on for a young fan. I hesitate to call myself an athlete. I was a decent player, and I could always kind of hold my own in whatever sport I was playing, but I was never certainly the best player or the standout guy. And I knew at a fairly young age that I played a couple of years of high school tennis, played 4 years of high school baseball. So I was a decent enough athlete to make teams, but I sure as heck was not good enough to go to the next level collegiately or certainly professionally by any means. So it was sort of like, all right, how can I kind of blend this passion for sports into a potential career? And that's when the wheels started kind of turning in high school towards, could I work in broadcasting? Could I work in television, in radio, something like that? And the rest is kind of history. I'm very lucky that I was able to kind of follow through and succeed on the dream I had.
I love that. So like that's what I like to do on my podcast too, is talk a little bit about mental health and sports and kind of learn stories because there's so many people I find, myself included. I played youth sports hockey last year at my university, and this year, unfortunately, I wasn't able to. But the one thing I find is that people who have an identity around sports, when they stop playing the game, they want to stay involved in the game, and that's really tough for some people. You think of yourself as an athlete, and then all of a sudden you realize, I'm not good enough to play at this level anymore, and you kind of got to find a way to blend in. So when you went to university and you were studying broadcast journalism, if I'm not mistaken, was that the kind of time you realized that you wanted a career in broadcasting, or did you kind of think about it a little bit in high school?
No, it came in high school, and I mean it's a very long story that I'll try and compress it as best I can. But in high school, as I said, it was probably around grade 10, 11. And remember back then we actually had the full 5 years. We did a grade 13 as well, so you had a little more time, a little more runway to make the decision. But it was around grade 10 or 11 I started realizing not only do I not really enjoy maths and sciences and whatnot, I'm also not very good at it, but I'm kind of liking English classes and creative writing and things that are a little bit more creative in general, whether it be arts and stuff like that. And I enjoyed geography and history and whatnot. But again, realizing that as much as I love sports and I'm decent at some sports, I'm not the best player. I'm not going to be an athlete. This is not going to be at a next level. And there's obviously a major difference, which you can certainly speak to even more so than me, between high school sports and college university sports, let alone college university and semi-pro, let alone pro. There's obviously levels. And I was not going to be a guy that was at that next level. In fact, just as a quick aside, the first, I'm trying to remember to make sure I get it factually correct. I believe the first year, maybe first 2 years of playing high school baseball, I started, came off the bench as like a utility guy the last 2 years, because that speaks to, again, I was good enough to make the team, but I wasn't good enough to start anymore. And we had a kid on our team in my last year in grade 9. He was starting as our catcher. And here I am, grade 13, and this kid in grade 9, he's starting. We started getting scouts coming out to our games from the Marlins, the Rockies, the Twins, the Padres. There was 5 teams, but those are 4 of them. Anyways, one of the scouts, when they were out, I kind of got pulled aside by one of them. They said, "Hey, I want to talk to you for a second." And this guy said to me, he's like, "I kind of like the way that you talk on the bench, and you got some leadership qualities." Da da da. I'm like, "Oh, shoot, this is pretty good." Like I'm getting talked to by some major league scout. So I took that opportunity to just say, like, "So what do you think about?" And he's like, "Oh, no, no, no." Like, he's like, "This is like," he was quite, and looking back, he's like, "Man, you really crushed the dreams of an 18-year-old kid." But I also respected and appreciated the fact that he was being candid and honest. Like, no, you really are not a guy that's going to be at that next level. Yeah, I think he muttered something to me about like a D3 partial scholarship, maybe, possibly. It's like, no, I knew my lot in life. I knew I was not going to be going anywhere. And as far as basketball, I got cut. I tried out the first 3 years for high school basketball. And to my credit, I think, not to pat myself on the back, I did keep coming back and kept trying. And the first year I got cut, told, you got to come back with some more skill. The next year I got cut, and it was like, you know what, the skill level might be there, but there's a guy ahead of you. And I'm still friends with this guy to this day, Ryan Kelly. And he was just better. And at my size, at like 5'9", 150 soaking wet, I was going to be a point guard and nothing else. And he was a 6'2" point guard that was far better. And I just was not going to cut it. Yeah. So I, no pun intended, got cut. And then I just gave up. Grade 12 and 13, I didn't even try. So anyways, back to your question. I realized again that I'm not going to be an athlete, and that's not a realistic aspiration for a lot of people, not to crush anybody's dreams. But is there a way that I could find a way to stay connected to sports in some capacity? What would that be? Well, I don't think I want to be a doctor, i.e. a trainer or a therapist or anything like that. And I don't think I even really knew at the time enough about sports management or equipment manager or travel manager or coordinator or whatever else. It was like, man, could I be on TV? Could I do the highlights? Could I throw the highlights? And, like at the time, this is before Sportsnet and the Score even existed. It was just TSN. So watching highlight shows and watching Global Sports back in the day with Global Sports Line. This is way back before your time with Jim Taddy and Mark Hebscher and whatnot, and watching late night, news and sports reels and stuff. I'm thinking, man, that'd be kind of fun. Could I do that? So I started focusing all my attention in high school on anything but math and sciences. Give me every English class I can take, whether it be Shakespeare to English history to, again, creative writing and short stories and all that stuff. If there's any kind of media class I can take, and okay, I got to start filling in the gaps. Well, more history, more geography, more like stuff like that was anything but, as I keep referencing, math and science. I was horrible at it. And I always say, Aaron, that I'm very lucky that at a young age, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. Then I went to college, university, and did what I thought I wanted to do. And it turned out, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then the trifecta was I got to do what I wanted to do. And that's extremely fortunate that I actually was afforded an opportunity. But I'm going to back up 1 second for you. Not that it makes a difference to me, and I'll be the first one to tell you and your audience that I don't think it should make a difference to anybody. But I went to college, not university, and I chose college over university. I applied to all the universities that I wanted to. I got into 3 universities and turned them all down because on the last night before the college applications were due, and my mom was a school teacher as well. And I remember, and again, we're going back almost 30 years. And I hate the fact that this mantra still exists, I believe, or this mentality still exists with, unfortunately, I believe a lot of people. I can't put a number on it. But I still think in today's day and age, there's this mentality or this feeling that, like, well, university versus college or degree versus diploma. And I'm here to call that absolute bogus BS. Yeah. I think it's what's best for you, what suits you best, what suits your career aspirations best, what program is best. And I know tons of university students, with no disrespect to them, that went and had a great education. And I'm not going to call it any schools, had a great education, and then went to college for a year or two to actually get some honed skill learning to actually be able to go get a job. So I feel like if you truly know what you want to do, or you think you know what you want to do, there are some absolutely outstanding college programs that you could and should go after. And at the risk of at the risk of pissing off some parents potentially, I would say to young people right now that are watching this, go with what's best for you, feel what's in your gut and listen to your gut and go with your gut, and don't buy into degree versus diploma, because an employer will employ you if they think you're good and if you have skill and talent and an education behind you, whether it's a degree versus diploma. So I remember saying to my mom, well, is it a concern? Like, you know, if I go to college instead of university? And she said exactly what I just said. And again, she was a teacher. She's like, you do what's best for you. You do what you think is best. My dad kind of agreed, said the same thing. And I started going on the visits to the various campuses, colleges and universities. Like, I wasn't ruling out university. I had now applied to both. I was kind of covering my butt by, well, what if I don't get in? Because my marks were okay, but they were middle of the road. Like, I was a B student for the most part. So what if I don't get into university? Well, it turns out I got into the universities of my choice. I got late acceptance into one. I got into two others, turned them all down. And why? Because when I started going on the visits to the various campuses, I was like, man, I kind of like what I'm seeing at college more. I'm liking the classrooms instead of the auditoriums. I'm liking the class sizes of like 30 instead of 100 plus. I'm liking, with no disrespect, the teachers that are still working professionals in the industry, as opposed to a lot of professors that maybe aren't in the industry anymore, and they're just kind of regurgitating what they used to do or what they have heard about. And again, I'm not trying to knock all professors, all universities by any means. I just like the idea of these college teachers. Every single one of them was a reporter at the Globe and Mail, an editor at CTV, a producer at Global, a writer for the Toronto Star. Like, I'm like, man, this is pretty awesome. And then when I focused and really honed in on, Humber College became my choice, because not only do they have a renowned journalism program, but it was set up very similar to, in my opinion at least, it was set up similar to a university program in that the first year you kind of got everything. You learned magazine, you learned newspaper, you learned digital, you learned radio, you learned TV. But then in years 2 and 3, you essentially had to pick, for all intents and purposes, a major, quote unquote. And you either went the print stream or the broadcast stream. And I went broadcast. And also, Humber had a residence, which allowed you to have the university experience in college by living in the dorm, which most colleges, or at least at the time, most or many colleges didn't have. And then on top of all that, Humber also had a guaranteed placement, a guaranteed internship in the third year, which a lot of university programs at the time didn't have, and a lot of other colleges didn't. So to me, Humber was checking off all the boxes. Now, it wasn't a guaranteed placement where you want. It was, we will get you a placement and you will get hands-on experience. And as we fast forward through 3 years, I ended up getting a placement at the FAN 590, and I didn't even want it. I wanted TSN, and I actually wrote the test, the little exam that they give for interns and whatnot, and I failed it. I don't know if I got the trivia wrong or the questions wrong or they just didn't like me or whatever, but I got turned down at TSN, and one of my teachers at Humber said, I've got a connection at sports radio at the FAN 590. Let's see if we might be able to get you in there. Went for an interview, and it went really well. I got hired as an intern, and within 6 months, I was hired as a regular part-time paid employee. And less than 12 months later, I was a full-time employee, and I actually left the journalism program a couple of months early. I jobbed out and graduated with honors because I got a full-time job. And I was in the industry, hired full-time, working as a producer. That was my starting job. And I was 22 years old. And it kind of like the rest is history. So it, as I can speak to it, and that's why I'm kind of passionate about it when I tell people, forget this degree versus diploma. What's best for you? What's best for your path and what feels right, and go with that, and worry about the rest later. Just put your head down and do the work, and don't get caught up in a piece of paper.
I love that, because we had a couple guest speakers come in to talk to us over here at TMU, and a lot of them say the exact same thing you said, right? Like, nobody really cares if you get a 92 or an 80 in a random sports class. It's about the experience you have. Have you done internships? Have you met with these people? And obviously networking and connections is a big part of that too. So do you think college played a massive part in your ability to kind of reach out to people? Do you think that was part of the reason why you were able to kind of get those experiences you got at such a young age?
I think so. Short answer is yes. The longer answer is, and I'll be the first to acknowledge the luck, the privilege, the moment in time of lightning striking all over the place. And what am I talking about? Had I graduated a year or two or three earlier or a year or two or three later, maybe things don't happen the way they did for me.
Right.
So Raptors come into the league in 95, 96. I graduate a year later. So the only year that I was in the stands as a fan and not covering the team in some way, shape, or form was the first inaugural season.
Right.
But as I'm starting at the fan as an intern, and this goes back to when I said I was hired part-time and then full-time, and I was a producer behind the scenes for 3+ years. But when I got hired, also within that kind of framework, that range of 6 to 12 months, Headline Sports startup. Headline Sports became The Score. Sportsnet startup. So suddenly in a swell of, let's say, a year or less, we went from having one sports network in Canada to three. Well, those three networks started trying to go to the various, yes, some newspapers, but mostly television stations and radio stations to find producers, directors, editors, engineers, and also clearly reporters, on-air hosts, anchors, etc. So take from here, take from here, take from here. Well, that included taking from the Fan 590. So a producer was taken from the Fan, which opened the door for, we need somebody. There's Eric Smith. He's been pretty good as this part-time guy. He was good as an intern. He's been good as a part-timer. He's been working some evenings and weekends. Boom, we're sliding him in. And I became producer for Gord Stellick, the former GM of the Leafs, doing the big show is what it was called at the time, from 1 to 4, Monday to Friday. So I'm working 5 days a week producing the show, getting guests on, whatever else. And I did that for the first 3 years of my career, while also moonlighting and double shifting at night, going down to Raptor games because, this brand new team in this league has just started, the Raptors. And I'm telling you, it sounds crazy to say now, 30 years later, but Aaron, I can tell you flat out that there were a ton of people in management, but let alone the fan base, but in management of these various places. The Raptors aren't going to stick. This is a flash in the pan. This is a hockey town. This is a baseball town. Nobody cares about basketball. This isn't going to fly. They'll be gone. Whatever. Who cares? Don't worry about it. And we could get into there. I think there was a lot of deep-rooted racial undertones to the lack of respect and the lack of coverage given to basketball in the early on. But that's another topic for another day. I think a lot of people just felt like, again, this isn't going to last. Well, I'm the guy that covered the Humber Hawks basketball team at Humber, and a guy that grew up with Magic Johnson posters on his wall, Michael Jordan posters on his wall, and was a rare Canadian. Again, I think it'd be rare today, but certainly 30 years ago, never played hockey. Played road hockey, played ball hockey all the time. Never played hockey in my life at any level. I can skate, and I've played in some charity games with the fan team, but I never played Timbit hockey, Pee-wee hockey, nothing. I'm a weird Canadian that way. I grew up on baseball and basketball as my two primary sports in terms of playing. So I'm this kid now, this young kid coming out of school that's like nipping at the heels of the bosses or anybody that listen. Hey, can I go down to a Raptor game? Hey, could I go hold a microphone? Hey, could I go job shadow? Hey, could I go do like, I love this team. This is great. Like the NBA is finally in Toronto. Are you kidding me? I was in the stands at the draft. I was booing Damon Stoudemire. Clearly I was wrong. Like, I want this. I love this. And eventually he's like, sure, you can go down. Sure, you can cover. Sure, you can help out. And again, I was just in the shadows helping out. Well, who was I helping out? One of the guys was Elliot Friedman, the original Raptors reporter on The Fan. Elliot leaves to become the feature reporter and sort of feature interviewer for Headline Sports. And then George Strombolopoulos was at The Fan as well, doing some Raptor work. He was working as a board op on a late night show with a host called Spider Jones. And George ends up leaving eventually for CFNY and then Much Music. While all of that's going on, opportunities are opening. I'm still working my 9 to 5, producing the afternoon show from 1 to 4, but I'm trying to pick up more shifts at night. And going into year 4 of the Raptors' existence, now I've been in the industry a couple of years. The Fan 590 acquires the rights. The first 3 seasons, the Raptors were on 10-10 CFRB. Going into year 4, the Fan 590 acquires the rights, and they've had them since. They hire Chuck Swirsky and Jack Armstrong to do the play-by-play broadcast, and they had Barry Davis working at the Fan at the time. He was the most senior reporter now. He was handed the reins to take over the Raptors beat full-time, but they said, Eric, you're kind of like the number 2 to Barry. You're still going to be producing. You're still going to do all that, but we want you to work the practices as much as you can, work the games at home as much as you can. Barry might be doing some traveling, but otherwise you're going to kind of be there with Barry sort of tag teaming the Raptors. And after one season, Barry left for other opportunities. And they called me into the office and they said, it's time to sink or swim. Let's see what you got. You're going to take over the beat and you're going to be our full-time guy. You're going to do pre-half and post for Chuck and Jack. And you're going to be the regular guy going down to practices every day. You're no longer a producer and you're going to be the full-time Raptors guy. And I was just past my 25th birthday. So again, if the Raptors hadn't come into the league pretty much right as I was graduating, if the Score and Sportsnet didn't start right as I was graduating and starting, if I hadn't been a basketball guy, if Elliot didn't leave, if George didn't leave, if Barry ultimately didn't leave, if the fan didn't acquire the rights, if the NBA, like all of these things just thrown into the pot, that's why I don't want to crush anybody's dreams by any means. I hope that there's somebody that has a similar story to mine today. I just think it would be extremely difficult because it was right place, right time, right situation with tons of things happening and just sort of Johnny on the spot. Here's your moment. I will say, and I promise you, I say this without a shred of arrogance. I would say this about anybody in any field, in any walk of life is even if that door gets open for you though, and you walk through that door, it's now up to you to stay in that room.
Right.
And to not get kicked out and have that door hit you on the butt. So now, do you have the skill? Do you have the talent? Do you have the drive? Do you have the work ethic? Do you have the people skills? Do you have what it takes? And I end up doing pre-half and post. Like people will think like, oh, like what an amazing opportunity. And it was. And listen, I would have done pre-half and post for 20 years and still been happy. But it took almost a decade to get to where I am now as one of the actual broadcasters. Again, the what if. If Chuck and Jack hadn't left for television, who knows, right? They ultimately left for TV, and it was a different time when the opportunity for a radio broadcaster to be as known or as popular or more than a TV broadcaster was there because not every game was on television. Again, that's not to knock any TV broadcaster by any means, but back in the day, and again, I'm much older than you, not all 82 games, whether it be Leafs or Raptors or all 162 for the Jays, whatever, there were like 30 games broadcast on television for the Raptors. And then there might have been 40 the next year, and then there might have been 50. It was not standard to have every single game on TV, but every game was on the radio. So folks would get to know, I'm talking 20 years ago, let alone 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, folks got to know the radio broadcasters extremely well because they were the only ones that had every game. So again, had Chuck and Jack not gone, maybe that door doesn't open. And now here I am 20 years later in my 20th season calling games, my 27th season covering the Raptors, and I have yet to turn 50, even though I am still very old. So it's totally, I've acknowledged it how many times, the right place, right time, worlds colliding, lightning flashes, the opportunity, the privilege, the everything. But if I would have just graduated a year or two or three earlier or a year or two or three later, who knows? Who knows? So
I like what you said too. Like it's not
a little bit of luck comes into all this. You know what I mean?
for sure. Like it's a little bit of dumb luck, and it's not just about sports too. This applies to in life. You just need one person to say yes, right? You need one break. You don't need everyone to be giving you yeses. Things could be going down, but like you said, right place, right time. Someone falls out, and you get that opportunity, and you got to make the most of it.
Yep.
So
it's I'll just quickly say to that, and that's why I'm gonna get all like parenty on you here, and like I have a 15, almost 16-year-old son who's got a couple of years away from college university himself, and I'm big on eye contact. Like we're not in person right now, but I don't think moved my eyes from the lens very much. It's the only way I can really kind of mimic eye contact right now. But I'm big on eye contact, and I'm big on listen. I was 18 once. I did a lot of dumb stuff when I was a 16, 18, 20-year-old young person as well. I made mistakes. I'm far from perfect. Still to this day, ask my wife, far from perfect. But I think if you can just generally be a decent person with decent morals and ethics, and I'm not a religious guy, but truly treat people how you would want to be treated, do unto others. And again, make that eye contact, shake that hand, treat the 50-year-old with the same respect that you would the 10-year-old, because you know what? The 10-year-old in 10 years might be 20 years old and has the latest app that is like catching on fire, making millions. And now you're 28 going to the 20-year-old going, hey, I'd love to work for you. And if you treated that kid like crap at a young age, that 20-year-old now might remember that. Just like that 50-year-old might remember man, that kid wasn't really respectful, just kind of grunting and groaning and had his head down and wasn't dressed properly or didn't present himself well or herself well and didn't really seem to kind of give much decency or respect to me. Like, forget that kid that's now 25, 28, 30 years old that's looking to me for a job. But I'll also flip it. Expect that in return as well. Because if you're giving it, you should be getting it. Yeah. That 50-year-old in 10 years might be 60, and now you're 28 and you're the boss, or you've got a company and they're looking for a job late in their career because they got let go or they're looking for a fresh start. Now they come to you. Keep that filed away the way people treat you as well. Demand that back from other people. So I feel like if you're giving, you should be getting no matter your age. And I think that applies to all walks of life, all job fields. Just honestly, just be a decent person. Like, really, be a decent person, be a hard worker. And that should hopefully carry a lot of clout and a lot of weight in whatever you're doing.
I love that. It's a good lesson in sports and in life too, right? It'll take you a long way, just treating people the right way. So, kind of just talking to you a little about broadcasting for a second. What's a piece? Obviously, you've done this for so many years and probably have so much good advice and things that you've done. But if you had to talk to a young kid who's getting into broadcasting, trying to make it in the industry, what would be one piece of advice for that one kid to stand out in the industry?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say one thing's going to make you stand out because it's a whole lot of things. But I'll give you a couple things here. One, I would say, kind of piggybacking what we just spoke about to some extent. You know, in your heart, in your gut, in your brain, what's right and wrong. So clearly, I'm giving you a couple of prefaces here. Knowing the difference between right and wrong, and knowing in your gut what is morally and ethically correct and what feels morally and ethically right. Don't ever compromise your morals or ethics, but try to say no to nothing. Again, with those prefaces and with those little disclaimers in. You know what? I did coffee runs, lunch runs, dinner runs. I would move somebody's car because they came in late and they had to park out front of the building and they didn't have time to go down underground, which is probably bogus. But you know what? Sure. I worked at 3 a.m. I worked at 3 p.m. I worked weekends. I worked evenings. To this day, I got a family. Most of my life is, what are the games? Evenings and weekends. Like for any sport. I did all the shifts. My first show that I ever worked on when I came in was a radio show called the Junior Hockey Magazine. I didn't know a damn thing about junior hockey. But you know what? I researched and I read and I got up on it and I prepped to be able to get the guests to then provide my host with the information. Say no to nothing. And especially in sports or in news, let's just say broadcasting, whatever it is, sports, entertainment, news, whatever it may be. If you're in broadcasting, if you're in media, whether it be as a writer, as a broadcaster, or otherwise, as I just said, when does most of the stuff happen in sports? Evenings and weekends. Mostly. Yep. When does news happen? 24/7. When does entertainment happen? Especially in today's day and age. Like, again, different 30 years ago, but not really. It's just the access is different. Now we all have our phones. News is breaking literally every millisecond because somebody can shoot a picture or shoot a video and post it and put it up on X or Threads or Blue Sky or Instagram or whatever, and it's out there, boom, it's done. So it does not matter if you're working at 4 a.m. because news might break at 1 a.m. on the West Coast or at 9 a.m. out in England or wherever. So you have to take every shift with the same approach as you would if you were working in, quote, primetime hours or 9 to 5 or whatever. That's one piece of advice. Because the other thing, too, is you never know when, just to use sports as an example, you're working at, again, time doesn't matter, but you're working at 4 p.m. on a Saturday and a massive trade breaks. No bosses are at the office. It's just you and the host on the air, or if you're in TV, it's you and a camera person, and you're sent out because there might be one person on the assignment desk instead of 3, and none of the sales folks are around, and the GM and the programmer and the VP, they're all gone. They're off on the weekends. They're accessible, but they're not literally boots on the ground, hands on, but you are, and you get sent out, or you're just there to help facilitate things for other people. So you just never know when something important might go down, or somebody else is sent out on an assignment somewhere or down at a game and they need an extra set of hands, and you're the intern or the part-timer and you're milling around and you're the one sent down, or something happens in another part of the city. The Jays, the Leafs, the Raptors are all playing at once, and FC makes a trade, and somebody needs to get to the FC press conference. And boom, Aaron, can you go for us? You just never know when stuff like that might happen. So again, without ever compromising morals or ethics, try to say no to nothing, because those opportunities not only could open doors for your own career and more opportunity for you to gain experience, but you also don't know who you're going to meet when
Right.
you're out there. Other reporters, other anchors, other camera people, other whoever, PR people, athletes, etc., let alone the experiences that you're exposed to. The other thing I would say more specifically to what we are even doing right now is, and this might not work for everybody, but this kind of worked for me, and it sort of speaks to the eye contact thing a little bit. I've never written a question down in 20 plus years.
Right.
It's not to say I don't prepare. It's not to say I don't do research. It's not to say I don't write questions down ahead of time and then sort of in my mind memorize the questions or kind of memorize a bit of a blueprint of where I'd like to go. But I never have a piece of paper on my lap or in my hand when I'm talking to somebody, because I don't want to get caught while they're talking with my head down, looking at my next question, and now I'm not actually listening, or I am pretending like I'm listening and I'm nodding my head like I'm listening, but I'm really trying to sneak my eyes down or in my brain go, oh man, what was question number 3? I really have to ask him about, where he grew up and, his childhood home or what she thought about when she was blah, 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 blah. Because now you might miss something awesome that they say, and you missed a golden chance to follow up on that and maybe take the conversation in a completely different direction, which is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. Take that conversation, let it go, let it flow naturally, instead of like, okay, great. Yep. Okay. My next question. Okay. Now question number 6. Okay, great. And like, you don't want it to just feel like boom, ba boom, ba boom. You
I
want
get
it
a
to
little
be
bit of a flow, right?
exactly. You want it to be a conversation, right? Just like, and to me, that's something that I feel like could help you. I don't mean you, help people in life as well. Just at a party, at a family function, whatever, just having conversations, talking with people. The most, to me at least, I don't know if you would agree, the best podcasts, the best TV shows, the best interviews to watch, the best broadcasts to listen to me are the ones that sound more natural,
Oh,
that
yeah.
have a general flow to them, that just don't sound so rigid and I can't think of a better word than rigid and just sort of structured overall. You want it to be natural, and you want your partner, if you have a broadcast partner, you want your guest, you want your viewers or your listeners to feel relaxed
Right.
and feel like they're part of it as well. And I think that's the best way to do it, by kind of disarming people and letting it be natural and not being so focused. Because the other thing too is, if you're talking to me right now face to face and we're in the same room together and you've got a piece of paper on your lap,
Yeah.
I'm either going to be trying to do one of these to see what's there, or I'm probably going to be like, wonder what's next. Like now am I even giving the answers? Because I'm like, how much time do we have left? I wonder how many questions you have left. I wonder what's coming next. Is it going to be totally out of left field? And it's a distraction that I don't think you need.
Right. So for you, is this kind of a lesson that you learned over time about how to treat people in the industry? Was this something you kind of picked up from like a mentor, or was this something that, through the years of working with people, you kind of learned slowly?
It's best answer is probably a little bit of A, B, C, and D. However many you just threw out there, it's probably a little bit from every column.
Right.
I will say I didn't write anything down from the get go.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things is working years in radio has made me a better TV broadcaster, because I'm used to not having a script. Like you go on a 3-4 hour radio show, if you
Yeah.
tune into 680 News or the Fan 590 or whatever, those guys don't have scripts. Those if you listen to Ailish Forfar or somebody else, they're not working off like, so last night in the Leafs game, this is my opinion. No, it's just like they're just talking. Well, now put a camera on. I don't need like, it's different if it's highlights. Yes, I need to know player X passed to player Y and said player scored, and okay, now Ovechkin is only 7 goals back or whatever the hell we're talking about. But that's different when you're doing a highlight package. But when you're just simply doing a live broadcast, like play by play, or a radio show, or you're going on some sort of talk show, not only do I not need the script, I don't want the script, I don't want a teleprompter, I just want to speak naturally. And yes, a lot of that I think comes with just experience and repetition. And one of the things I love about radio is you don't have a chance to do take 2. So you know what? If you say a few too many times, try to not do it 5 times or 10 times or 20 times, but try to clean it up. But otherwise, you make a mistake, whatever, you just move on. TV, I think you always know in the back of your head, unless you are live, I can do a take 2. And trust me, I've done plenty of stand-ups where, whatever, the Raptors will be playing against Portland on Friday. damn it, they're playing Golden State. All right, let's roll again. And okay, and because so you end up becoming lazy. Whereas if you were live and you and I were talking, that's right, Aaron, the Raptors playing sorry, Golden State. You kind of move on. And I think again that just comes with the repetition and the experience of doing it. But it's also picking up on cues from other people, picking up on skills from other people, learning from your mentors. Like again, I had a chance to come in with I learned a lot about sports, let alone about the industry from Gord Stellick. I mean, former general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, youngest GM in NHL history at the time when he was the GM of the Leafs, to learn about the inner workings of the sports landscape in Toronto from a guy born and raised in Toronto that ran, the most popular team arguably in the country, one of the most popular in North America. That was huge. Then to learn just even the cues of daily talk shows and radio from him as he had transitioned into a broadcaster. And he used to be the Leafs radio color analyst as well. Then to get a chance to learn from Elliot Friedman in terms of covering a sport and doing interviews and asking questions and following a guy like him, and a vastly different style, but yet still equally as impressive in George, and working on some shows with George. And then to work and transition alongside a guy like Barry to learn the ropes of covering a team on a daily basis and seeing how other reporters from other radio stations and TV stations and newspapers handle themselves at practices, at games, with the athletes. You got to be a sponge with all that. Then sitting courtside, like front row, right beside the Raptors bench, right at center court, basically working with Chuck Swirsky, Jack Armstrong, having them show me the ropes of broadcasting, becoming friends with them, and like you just being a sponge to all of that. Like some of the greatest in the industry that we've had in this city, Chuck, Jack, George, Elliot, Bob McCowan at the Fan for years, let alone all the other people in television that I've had a chance to work with. Like to be able to learn from all them, no doubt made me a better broadcaster. And hopefully I can pass some of that along to younger broadcasters that are coming up as well. Because again, I hope I'm still doing this for a long time, because I'm old, but I'm not that old yet. So I would love to still be around for quite a while and have a chance to see the next wave of the 25, 30-year-olds that maybe bump me out in 15 or 20 years, not in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I love it. So in terms of stress, I like to talk about stress on my podcast because it's also about mental health. You have your family life and you have your work life, and they're both very stressful things, I imagine. How do you manage the stress of having such a tough job, an important job where, sometimes you only get one take while working, and also managing the stress of a family as well?
It's not always easy, but by any means, Aaron. I think the best answer I can give you is that it depends on the support system that you have around you, and that's why I would say that the relationships you choose in life, and I don't just mean with your significant other. I'm talking about friends. I'm talking about colleagues. I'm talking about the people you choose to spend your time with. I think you need to be very diligent and cautious of where you're spending that time and who you're spending it with, and truly understand and appreciate who has your back and who's looking to lift you up, not pull you down or not drag you down, and who respects, again, how many times have we referenced, who respects and understands and appreciates and gets that you're going to be gone a lot of weeknights, or weekends, and you're going to be distracted at times and busy at times where a lot of other people are generally off. You're going to be home alone more often than not when most people are at work. So it's living kind of a completely different life. So finding people, whether it be friends, whether it be significant others, that will respect that and truly understand and appreciate that is paramount. That's the best answer I can give you, because I think then a lot of it comes down to your own willingness to cope with what you have, and then also to understand and accept and recognize, am I coping well and I'm doing okay, or do I need to seek out help from somebody, whether it be professionally or from one of these friends, one of these family members, one of these colleagues, one of these coworkers, one of these mentors that maybe can share in an understanding of, yeah, I went through something similar, or I live a similar type of life. And it's honestly about being kind of vulnerable to have conversations. Like and listen, please be clear that I have absolutely no problem. I'm very much an advocate for seeking help professionally when you feel you need it. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's a ton of amazing things about that. I, to this day, have never actually been to a therapist, because in my mind, I've preferred to kind of open up to a couple of really close friends, and they're like almost like my therapist in a sense. There are things that, and I don't even mind saying this, even if my wife were to watch this, there are things that I'll say to a friend that I might not even say to my wife. And it's not necessarily about my wife or about my family. There are just certain candid conversations that I will have with a really close friend of mine that maybe I just don't feel like I can have with my wife, because this friend lives the same type of life that I live and has a similar job and has had the same type of experience. Just like there are conversations clearly that I would get into with my wife that I won't with other people. So it's being honest with yourself and being vulnerable enough to have those feelings, let alone to acknowledge those feelings and then to talk about those feelings. Um, I also will say, and I'm not one to say, just chin up and go out. But like at the end of the day, man, we're talking about sports. Like getting paid to watch sports and to talk about sports and to go on TV or radio and talk about sports. Like it's not that it isn't stressful. It's not that it doesn't have pressure. It's not that it can't just end like that, especially in the volatility in this industry. But we're not talking about saving lives here. You know, we're not doctors and nurses. We're, like it's sports. So try to recognize that why did you get into this? Because it's sports. It's fun. You love it. You have a passion for it. So try to find that passion and try and not weigh yourself down with the stress of, and man, just enjoy yourself. Like just enjoy what you do. And if you can find more of the joy, I think you will find less of the stress. I think the toughest thing for my job specifically has been in the last 20 years as a broadcaster, as a play-by-play broadcaster. I traveled for the first 15 years. My first year of travel was the year that I got married. So I was on the road for 1 year before I was a married man. So my wife essentially was born into it. Like our whole relationship essentially has been me on the road for 8 to 9 months of the year. My son, who is turning 16 this summer, for the first 10 years of his life, he was born into dad's on the road 8, 9 months of the year and missing Christmases and birthdays and family functions, whatever else. And I'm just not around. But then dad's home for 3 or 4 straight days or for a week straight. It might be going down to a home game, but then he's off and he can go to school and he can pick me up and he can be at certain things that maybe other moms or dads can't be at because my dad's off in the middle of the day. So there are trade-offs. But like I say, the first 15 years of my marriage, the first 10 years of my son's life, I wasn't around a whole ton. That's a stress. Now, the last 5 years, I haven't traveled. The radio broadcasts for the Raptors and for a couple of Major League Baseball teams and a handful of NHL teams still have not returned radio broadcasters on the road. So we've been calling games remotely from the studio when the team goes on the road. That's not as easy, calling a game off TV, but still, at the end of the day, you sort of check yourself and go, hey, I still have the privilege of being a play-by-play broadcaster, calling games and getting paid to watch sports. There are worse things in the world. I would love to be back on the road. I would love to be traveling, but what's one of the trade-offs of, even though it might be a little bit more difficult on the job and certainly more difficult on relationship building and whatnot with players and with coaches and with fellow broadcasters, whatever else, it's allowed me to be at home more than ever before in my marriage and more than ever before in my kids' life. And at a time where not that grade 4 and grade 6 and grade 8 isn't important, but here I am now home with my kid in high school and only a couple of years away from going and maybe moving away. I don't know where he's going to go. But these last handfuls of years, I have a chance to finally see him a little bit more and be around him that much more and to kind of give back to my wife the first 15 years where I wasn't around a whole lot. So it's, again, trying to find the positives in some of the negatives. And listen, I'm the first guy to admit that I need to do more of that, because I've referenced my wife a few times. If she was here listening to this, she to this day says, you are not, and I agree with her. I am not a optimist, but I don't agree with her that I'm a pessimist. I very much feel like I'm a realist. I think I can kind of see the good and the bad in most and kind of play it right down the middle. But she's very much a realist. And there are a lot of realists out there that are more on the positive side. And I think I need to be more of that. And I think that speaks to, going back to your original question of just mental health, is trying to find more positives and taking a step back and really looking at it from 30,000 feet and saying, all right, is this really that bad? Or am I just kind of annoyed? And like, I don't know, it's a stupid example, but getting frustrated or getting stressed about a game or about a loss and then going, hold on a second. I'll be the first to admit, I would love for the Raptors to win every single game and to have, I mean, they're not going to go 82-0, but could they have a 72-10 season? Could they have a 73-9 season? Could they have a 65-17 season? Could they make it to the conference championship again? Could they make it to the NBA finals again? I would love that every single year. Calling a winning team is more fun than calling a losing team. Being around the positivity and the energy of a winning team and an ignited and passionate fan base is more fun than a team that's kind of ho hum down in the dumps, frustrated, a fan base that doesn't care and just kind of whatever. But if you really step back from 30,000 feet and go, I need to bring my A game to every broadcast. I need to broadcast a game as if this might be somebody's first time tuning in. I can't afford to take a night off. However, as entertaining as I will make it, as best as I will to do the best job I can, if the team loses, I didn't play. I didn't take a shot. I didn't miss a rebound. I didn't miss a defensive assignment. I did my job to the best of my ability. I can't control the outcome of the game. So you know what? Don't allow a loss or a losing streak to weigh me down, to affect my personal life, and certainly to not let it affect my professional life either, because then it does affect the broadcast and how I'm broadcasting and the type of broadcast I'm doing, which is then affecting the experience of the listener or the viewer. And then I'm bringing that crap home and it is affecting my personal life and everything else. So it's kind of taking that sort of approach of take a step back, take a breath, and really take in what you have and realize what's going on and try to find more of those positives. And again, I'm saying that, and I know I need to do more of that myself.
I like what you said a little bit about it's just sports, right? I had the opportunity to interview David Amber, and I was telling him that I was doing my first ever broadcast for TMU. I was broadcasting color commentary for a hockey game, and obviously there's like four people who watch that, right? It's just like my mom, my dad, and you never know, but probably some parents from other teams. But I was super nervous for my first time, and David Amber obviously, and I interviewed Matt Devlin on the same question, basically asking them about like you got millions of people watching, what's going on, and basically they said the same thing as you, right? It's just sport, right? It's a game. It's what
Yep.
people watch to relax and wind down, right? They invite you into their home and you're there to kind of teach them and guide the game along. And at the end of the day, there's real problems, as you said, right? There's doctors, there's people who have real life stresses, and then you got a sports game, which obviously is a lot of work into it, but in the bigger picture, it's a lot less. So I like what you said
Absolutely.
about
And I'll
that.
tell you the other thing too is
Yeah.
don't discount. Like, listen, maybe there was four people watching, but you know what, or listening, but maybe there was 14, maybe there was 40, maybe there was 400. I just as a very 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 quick example, this past weekend, Humber College was playing in the national championships, and they ended up winning. So shout out to the Hawks, their eighth national championship. And I was watching online. I don't have a kid there. I don't go there. I'm a broadcaster in the NBA, but I'm still wanting to watch my alma mater and watch like one of the assistant coaches I used to cover, Warwick Manners. I wanted to see how this team was playing. Now, I don't know, maybe I was one of the four, or maybe I'm one of the many that you're not even thinking about that are watching. So, but even then, it doesn't matter because you should be doing the same broad. And I'm not saying that you said otherwise. It shouldn't matter whether there's 4 or 4,000 because you should be doing the same job and bringing the same energy and bringing the same research and preparation and commitment and hustle and everything else, no matter who's watching, no matter who's listening. And once you get into the game, as the athlete, I would assume you can appreciate this. Now, as a broadcaster, you should just get into the game. And now you're not thinking about, oh, there's 4 million people or there's four. It's just, I'm watching the game and I'm calling the game and I'm feeding off the energy, good or bad, of this game, and good or bad on that last play, good or bad on that last assignment, and explaining and working and just kind of going from there. And don't even worry about how many people are or aren't watching or listening.
Like, but it goes back to your point earlier, right? If you're good at what you do, someone will notice you, right? So you keep on working, keep on figuring it out and see where it takes you. I wanted to ask you about your preparation, right? So you obviously were saying that you prepped in many different ways. Obviously, as you've gotten better in the industry, it's probably changed a little bit. But kind of walk me through what a day in the life would look like as a broadcaster. So let's say you're doing play by play back in the day. You're doing a play by play game. What would your day in the life look like? What time would you wake up? What would you do at lunch, getting prepped? What time would you show up? Walk us through a day in the life as a broadcaster.
Well, I'll give you this. This is probably the same for home or road. And again, I haven't traveled in 5 years, but let me just give you a typical home day. Excuse me. I can kind of give you an example of both. But a typical home day, I no longer cover the game day shoot around. I used to do that back in the day, but it's not something that I do as often now. or rarely. But the team will often have a morning shoot around that's like the morning skate in hockey, where they'll just kind of go through a walkthrough of their plays and get up a couple of shots, usually between 10 and 11 a.m. So if you're attending that, then obviously you're out the door by, say, 9, 8:30, 9 o'clock. You're down at the arena by 9:30, 9:45. Team broadcasters are often allowed to watch the shoot around. Most writers and most media aren't. But even if you aren't, then fine. You're just not even watching. You're just going in to talk to the players afterwards to ask them questions. Or if you're, back when I used to do some sideline reporting and whatnot, maybe get some stories for that night. Leave the arena then around 11, 12 o'clock, back home, have some lunch, maybe decompress for an hour or two, do some notes and some studying for at least 2 hours, if not 3. And then you're probably hopping in the shower by 3:30, 4 o'clock at the latest, and heading down to the arena. I normally get to the arena at least 2.5 hours before the game. So 7:30 tip off, I'm normally at the arena by 5 o'clock. And when you're at the arena, 5 o'clock, 5:15, let's say, walking through the door. This speaks to the TV side, not the radio side, but you might have to go get makeup for TV. You might have to get the hair fixed up or whatever else and make sure the wardrobe people like what you're wearing and get all kind of tie straight and everything else. Those are all the little things behind the scenes that maybe don't play into things as much. But then home coach speaks at 5:45, does his little mini press conference. Visiting coach speaks at 6 o'clock. By the time you get out of that, it's now 6:15. You're just over an hour to tip off, and you're only 45 minutes away from your pregame show starting at 7 o'clock. So you might have a couple of conversations off to the side with some coaches or some players down on the court, talk to your fellow broadcasters, make sure you've talked to your producer and your crew, whoever you're working with, that you're all set, and then get a bite to eat in quickly if you can, because you're on the air at 7 o'clock and you probably got a half-hour pregame show. Maybe you're not on that entire half hour, but you got a half-hour pregame show before tip-off. And then from then, it's like boom, right through until probably 10 o'clock. An NBA game usually takes about 2.5 hours, so probably by 10, you're signing off. So your day started around 9. It ends around 10 p.m. If you're doing any kind of post-game work, which I often do, it's usually not wrapping up till 10:30 or 11. So it certainly is a 10 to 12 to 14-hour day, but it comes in chunks.
Right.
And, you might have an hour. I probably would say 2 hours is a lot, but an hour or two in between a couple of those chunks to sort of decompress and do something else if need be. But it's sort of like one to the other to the other. Like even now, not covering shoot around, I would get up in the morning then and take that time to read the morning clips, like from the game before, the night before, around the league, check the standings, watch some tape, some highlights from who the Raptors are playing next, like watch Golden State's last game, fast forward through it if I don't want to sit and watch the entire game, maybe call one of the Golden State broadcasters, talk to that person, get some little tidbits and whatnot that I can take some notes on, then do that for an hour or two, take a break for lunch, come back to it, look at some stats, some numbers, some trends, take a break, go do some stuff, shower it up, back down to the game. So that's kind of a typical day. And it's similar on the road. The only difference is you're probably attending shoot around because you got nothing better to do anyways, and you're just wandering from the hotel room. And then you're doing your work in the hotel room. And you probably want to get out of that room just to decompress a little bit and have that hour break to go get some fresh air or to throw in a workout or something like that. But that's pretty standard for the most part. And the difficulty on the road is, more often than not, you're flying out after the game. Like you do stay in cities sometimes, but more often than not, it's on to the next city. Teams have done all these sort of studies and research on sleep studies and whatever else. And there was a time where it was like, no, it's better to stay and let the players get to sleep. But then some would say, well, maybe the players aren't actually going to sleep. They're going to go out. Now they're up even later. So let's just get from the arena, get on the plane, get to the next city. And even though they're getting in late, at least they're in bed and then they're going to sleep in the next day. And they already have boots on the ground in said next city. And I can tell you, that's all fine and good. And it sounds great. And yes, it's a charter flight and it's, it's like luxury seating and great food, not your typical crappy airplane food and whatever else. But trust me, when you've done it for a year, let alone for 15 years or longer, even as a little dude, I can only imagine, guys that are 6'5", 6'8", 7 feet, 7'2", whatever, in their bodies. I'm sore and I'm tired because why? You leave in the arena at 11:30, 12 o'clock, going to the airport, getting off the bus, getting onto the plane, taking an hour or 2 or 3 hour flight and landing, and then dragging your bag through a hotel lobby at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and finally crawling into bed. So it can be a grind, and that can be a stress if you're not taking care of your body, getting your sleep and taking your vitamins and eating properly and blah, 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 blah. But that can add to a stress of it. But that's kind of like a typical day. So it's again, it's sports. It's fun. but there are moments that aren't always the most glamorous and certainly not easy. Even though, again, I'm not complaining. Private charter, all that stuff, it's all fine and good. Players are paid extremely well, yada yada yada. But it can be a grind, no doubt.
Especially right because you're on air for 2.5 hours, and people probably sometimes think right like you're just on for 2.5 hours, but it's a full day of preparation.
Yeah.
Right? You're working behind the scenes, and there's just
And
as
I can
much.
tell you, it takes me a good 2 hours probably to sort of just calm down
Right,
after a game. Like
absolutely.
there's times where even if I'm not doing any kind of post game work, part of it's also traffic. I don't want to sit in the traffic, but I will hang out at the arena for at least a half hour, if not an hour after a game, just to decompress and just like literally the sensory overload, the noise in my head, let alone my voice and my throat and my body. It's just like, cause it's a rush big time. Like no doubt it's a rush. I just got to take that moment to decompress. And even by the time I make the drive home, even if it's like a 30-minute drive, there are times I walk through the door, wife and kid are already in bed. It's after midnight, and I just want to sit down and like have a glass of wine or have a glass of water or have a little snack or just turn on something not sports, like watch some show on Netflix or just something to distract my mind before I can kind of hit the sheets and shut my eyes. And that's, I'll tell you, just I keep saying quickly, but I give very long stories. I apologize for
You're all
that.
good.
Because of the evenings and weekends and late nights and flights and whatever else, I don't go to bed like tonight. There's no Raptor game tonight. I won't be in bed till at least 1 o'clock. Most nights I'm awake till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Now I figure my body's sort of conditioned to get 5 is good, but if I can get 6 or 7 hours sleep. So most people are like, oh my God, you didn't wake up at 7 a.m. or 7:30? I'm like, no, I woke up at 8:30. I woke up at 9. Oh, it's so late. I'm like, well, no, but I don't have a 9 to 5. So
Right.
if you're going to bed at 10 and waking up at 5, you got the same 7 hours that I did if I went to bed at 2 and got up at 9. It's just, you might not have that ability to have that flexibility in your life if you're with somebody that has a 9 to 5, or if you've got screaming kids, and that's a whole other thing. But it's kind of just adjusting your body clock, personally, let alone professionally, let alone socially, to a whole different world where you're living kind of opposite the vast majority of the population.
Well, yesterday's game, right? That didn't end until the
Yep.
1 a.m., right? So that
Yep.
clock. So you spend so much time broadcasting. It's a huge part of your life. But when you're not broadcasting, what are some of the activities that you like to enjoy that are not sports related?
I get asked this question a lot, and I never have a good answer because I'm the worst. Because if I could, well, I mean, people didn't see this, but before we came on camera, I was just literally trying to position the plant so it looked like there was something in the background. I am in the basement right now. It's a finished basement that's been finished for 10 years. There is not one picture on the wall. There is literally not one picture hanging in this basement, which speaks to I am the least handy guy in the world. I can barely even hang a picture straight. So I couldn't sit here and say, oh, I like to work with my hands and do handiwork. Uh, I guess, I'm out mowing the lawn and shoveling the driveway summer and winter, and I'm fiddling around the pool and whatnot and all this type of thing. But I don't play the guitar. I don't play drums. I certainly don't sing. Like I need a hobby. If you got any suggestions, like
I'm
I
the
need
same
a
way.
hobby.
I'm just
Like,
sports too. I don't blame you.
and I wish I had more of a hobby, because my hobby kind of was, as a kid, was, like I say, watching and playing sports, and then it
Yeah.
became my job. So I like video games. There's, my son's got a PS5 sitting here that he was lucky enough to get from grandparents a couple of years ago. I play it with him, but I don't think I've ever played it by myself.
Um,
Like I don't have a great answer for you in terms of what I do to fill my time. As you get older, and certainly as you have kids, you throw a lot of your time into kids, and kind of carting them around. I only have one, so anybody that has more than one, two, three, four, like I can't imagine how busy their lives are. I'm an average at best, probably below average golfer. I do enjoy golfing, but honestly, if I had a neighbor or a friend that lived within 5-10 minutes that had a similar schedule to mine, and he or she said, like, want to go play tennis? Boom, I'd be there within 20 minutes. Hey, you want to go get up some shots? I'd go shoot hoops. Like, I would love to do that right now, literally the second. And there are times in the spring and summer and fall when the hoop's out front, I'll go out and shoot. And like, I might be alone in the neighborhood. All the kids are at school. All the other adults might be at their jobs, and I'm just out getting up shots and shooting, just because that's kind of my hobby. I think I probably need to find something. I did photography for a while, and then it seemed like everybody said, "Oh, I do photography." Like, I actually took a photography class in college, and I think I was pretty decent. But then phones now are so good; they're better than most of the digital cameras you can buy with giant ass lenses. And now it's like, oh, the pictures I used to think were awesome or good, you or I could take easily with our phones. It's like, well, I sort of gave that up. So it's like I kind of really need something. I do enjoy watching movies, whether it be going to the theater or at home. I don't think I'm a TV addict by any means. Like I rarely turn the TV on during the day, but as I say, at night, sometimes I will just shut off basketball and tape a game, watch it the next morning so that I can binge. Like I binged for a couple of weeks ago, I binged three seasons or four, three seasons of Mayor of Kingstown. Like I watched like 3 or 4 episodes every night for like 3 weeks. I was up to like 3 a.m. just because I kept watching the show, just because it was like something else to do. So that's watching TV is certainly not a hobby, but it's something to get me away from sports a little bit. But yeah, now that you ask this, I do need to find something to do. Like painting. I'm a horrible painter. I would love to paint a room and change the look of the house and clean it up. I'm horrible. I can't do that stuff. I'm awful.
I'm the same way. I'll just throw on a random sports game when I'm bored, like
Yeah.
any sport.
Yeah.
My girlfriend always says to me, "Do you have any other hobbies besides sports?" I'm like, "Not really. Like this is my life. I like it's what I
Well,
stick with.
and if she's willing to accept that, then
Yeah.
you might have a good one. So, you know, like don't mess that up then.
Try to turn her into a massive sports fan, turn her into mini me. But yeah, just kind of one more question I had for you that I wanted to ask is in terms of your legacy, you know, you've done this for such a long time and you've had a successful career. What do you want to be known as when you retire? When you finally say, I don't know, maybe in 50 years, maybe you go until the day you die, but what do you want people to remember Eric Smith, the broadcaster, as?
I've never actually been asked that. Man,
A loaded question.
you know, it is loaded. Like it's loaded in the sense that I just hope people remember.
Yeah.
Period. Like I hope people remember that. Yeah, I've never been asked that, so I'm struggling to find a best way to describe it. When I say that they remember, it's not that I care to be remembered in terms of from fame. Like I'm well down the rankings. Like, you know, the stars are Matt and Jack, they're on TV and whatever else. But I hope people will say when they look back on my career that I enjoyed listening to him. I thought he did a good job. I remember certain calls that he had. I remember moments of my childhood when I used to listen more. Maybe I didn't listen as much when I was later. I hope that they can walk away with like, he was a decent guy. Even if they didn't meet me in person or meet me via something like this, that it came across on the air that he was a decent person or that he cared about the game. I'd like to hope that I don't carry myself as some cocky, arrogant, standoffish, holier than thou, because I don't think I live like that, and I don't believe that I talk like that. And I also think one of the things that I believe stands out about me, and hopefully people think this in a good way, not in a bad way, is the way I'm talking to you right now is the way I sound when I'm on the radio, when I'm broadcasting games.
Absolutely.
And some people, again, might say like, oh, I want something different. I want something more. Other people might totally respect and appreciate like, hey, he doesn't like, I don't turn into like, hey, the Raptors tonight. Oh, what a pass. Like I don't turn on some Joe broadcaster voice and suddenly become a different person and whatever. Like this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through on broadcast and even on TV. Like my facial expressions gives me away all the time. Like in my personal life, whatever, if I don't like something that somebody's saying, like I'll be shaking my head or rolling my eyes or like and I think that on TV I've really had to work to not do that when somebody's talking and to not react because my face totally gives me away. But I think my voice, you can tell by the inflection if I'm happy, sad, annoyed, frustrated, like and I think I've generally been pretty fair over the years. Like I'll say when the Raptors are struggling. I'll call out when I don't agree with something. But I also do it, I think, in a level, fair way where you're sort of privy to information that you need to sometimes delicately allow out in certain little moments. Like I might know about a player who's got something going on in his or her personal life that probably is impacting how he or she is playing or why he or she isn't playing or has been out for a stretch. That's not my information to share. So if somebody were to call in and go, and I'm just randomly using an example, this means nothing. Oh, Emmanuel quickly, I can't believe he's not playing tonight and he's got to play through these injuries. Well, maybe I actually know he had an MRI yesterday or that it actually is a break, not a sprain, or something happened in his personal life with his mother or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I think that part of being a fan is just being fanatical, being off the charts crazy sometimes, and just rooting for your team, good, bad, or otherwise, but getting frustrated and getting angry or else. That's how I am with the Buffalo Bills. Every Sunday, I am way high and way low with the Bills, good or bad on how they're going. But I don't know the inside info. I'm not privy to that stuff. So I hope people will look back at me and say he was good, he was fair, he was decent, he was approachable, he was kind of one of us. And that's how I think I view myself, and how I try to live my life both on and off the air.
Well, I'll tell you right now, when I was a little kid, I'm very lucky. Actually, my dad has season tickets to the Raptors, a couple rows behind the super fan. So I've actually seen you walk by me probably 50 times. And every single time I tap my mom on the shoulder, be like, Eric Smith, because like recognizable, right? You recognize the
Why
face.
didn't you ever say hello?
I think I did say hello one time to you, and I think I
All
have a
right.
picture with you. I'm gonna try and dig it up.
Okay.
'Cause I'm pretty sure I asked you for a picture maybe 6, 7 years ago. If I could dig it up, it'd be a great caption for my podcast, a picture of me and you 7 years
Absolutely.
ago. But no, definitely when I see you, I'm gonna say hi. But in terms of like knowing you, you said you're no Matt and Jack, but you're still pretty well known and in the industry. I'm sure everyone in my program, when I told them I'm interviewing Eric Smith, every single person pretty much knew who you were. So
No, that's nice.
definitely made a very lasting impact, and very glad you came on the show today and told your story, and definitely gave me a lot of good tips that I'm going to take with me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
All right, guys, we'll close off this episode of Rattling the Brain podcast with Eric Smith. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks.